Shalom, Mishpucha. Shalom, family. Mishpucha is a Hebrew word. It means family. And we're the Mishpucha, the family with the Jewish heart, made up of Jewish and non-Jewish people. We're the middle wall of separation between Jew and Gentile. It's finally come down to form one new man. Getting ready, Mishpucha, to blow the grandest shofar or the grandest trumpet in Zion. We want everyone everywhere to hear the good news. We want everyone everywhere to be red hot for the Messiah. My guest, Dr. Renny Mclean, I've interviewed him previously. And for those that aren't familiar with Renny, you have quite a unique heritage. Your father is Jamaican. Your mother is Jewish. And before we went on the air, I was going to ask you the question, but I said, no, let him explain it on the air. Tell me a bit about, every time I hear about a Jewish person coming to the Lord, there is something supernatural involved. How did your mother come to the Lord?
Well, I'll tell you, Sid, I must say it was totally prophetic how my mother came to the Lord. First of all, my mother was first generation born in the islands of the Portuguese Jews. And it's very interesting. She really had a visitation, but really wasn't fully convinced. And then 65 years ago, there was a man called T.L. Osborne, and I think you've heard of that name.
I sure have. His book on healing is a classic.
Oh, it's incredible. Well, my mother was at his first meetings he did in the islands over 60-something years ago. And that was where she saw signs, wonders, and incredible miracles that to this day she still talks about. And that was what really convinced her to turn. That was really what I would say that was what did it for her.
Just like you've had a supernatural experience, I'm just curious, did she have a supernatural experience with Jesus?
Oh, yes, she saw the Lord. She definitely saw the Lord. There's no question. My mother saw the Lord, and when she saw the Lord, there are several things I tell people about when you see the Lord, Sid. There are times when you first see the Lord, and it depends on the way he comes to you. Sometimes it's dramatic, sometimes it's not. And then it can just be in any way he chooses to come. But I'll tell you, the first time my mother saw the Lord, my mother was a child. And you got to remember that this was really hard for her because her mother, who was my grandmother, was extremely harsh and really wanted nothing to do with Jesus. And so with Yeshua. And so when my mother did have an encounter with the Lord, like Mary, she pondered it for a while. Is this real? Is it right? And whatever. And, the more she really pondered about it, she became more convinced about who he was. And then when she heard that Brother Osborne was coming to town, well, she sneaked to the crusade that he was having. She literally sneaked to the grounds. And then when she saw signs, wonders, and miracles, she saw that same Jesus in a man. And that was really, I would say, really where she totally changed and gave her heart totally to the Lord. So for her, it was by visitation and then by way of miracles and demonstrations afterwards.
Renny, you got saved as a child, and as a child, you started seeing miracles. People were healed of cancer, and is it because of that heritage your mother had of starting out with T.L. Osborne that it was just natural for you? How does a young child move in miracles?
Well, that's a great question, Sid. And let me say it to you like this. I think for me, it was relatively easy being a child because a child has no resistance to God in that it's easier for a child to flow into things of God. Because when you're a child, your reason is not fully educated or fully developed. So you've got less resistance to the supernatural. So for me, really, the supernatural was really normal.
Well, when you were very young, you had an encounter with the Lord. Tell me about that.
Yes. When I first saw the Lord, I was really a child. I had several encounters with the Lord when I was young. But I never forgot one night, I went to bed, and I said my prayers like most kids would say. And I just went to bed, put my head on the pillow, and not expecting anything or really looking for anything. And I guess that's what happens when after a while you just do what you do. You go through the motions. And I just went to bed, and about 5 minutes after that, a supernatural light came in my room. A light came in my room, and a presence came with it. And when I pulled the sheet off, Jesus stood at the end of my bed, and there were two angelic beings with him. And when he stood there, the four corners of the room fell out. And then, even though I was on my bed in the earth, but I was in the heavens and I was on my feet.
Now, when you saw Jesus, did he look like a real person, or was it kind of shadowy, or what?
No, he wasn't a shadow at all. It was a real person. His eyes were like crystal. To me, they were like crystal. They pierced everything they looked at, but all you could sense was his presence and his power and his compassion. And even though you're conscious that he knows everything about you, good and bad, but for whatever the reason, you are so overwhelmed by his love. And I think for me, he came to me in a way, I think because I was a child, it was easier for me. Because, I was a child, I hadn't done sin or, nothing like that. So I guess I didn't have that kind of consciousness. So I was really saved, as in the word saved. And so it was in total innocence. It was in total innocence. And then, when he stood before me, and then I realized I was no longer on the earth, he said to me, "This is where you'll go." And he stretched his hand out, and out of his hand, I just saw the earth. And I just saw I saw the earth, and I saw the stars around the earth, signifying its dimension that it's in. And all of a sudden, I saw the stars from the heavens get thrown to the earth. And he said to me, "This is where you'll go. This is where you'll go." And, true to what the Lord said, I've been to the earth. I'm still yet going to the earth. But, that commission has taken me to the world. And he said to me, "You'll bring the revelation of my glory to generations." And he never said, and this is what's prophetic said, he never said to my generation, he said to generations. And I knew that the message that the Lord would give me as I would grow in him, it would not necessarily be a generational message, because it would be a total inclusive message to no matter what generation it is. And I found out, Sid, that when I begin to teach the things on the glory of God or the Spirit of God, God gives me the ability to break it down, that from the youngest person to the oldest person can actually comprehend it. And that's one thing I say about the spirit of revelation. It gives you the ability to comprehend, and that's part of my gifting.
Well, you know what I find when I read your books or when I listen to your teaching, it is easy to understand, but yet it's so profound that I have to listen to it multiple times to catch the depth of what you're saying.
But Sid, I'm hearing even as we're talking right now, Sid, the reason why you do? Because when I'm standing there ministering the revelation of God, before I say it to people, what people don't know is that that's not the way I heard it. I'm saying it the way I broke it down. So you're probably picking up the depth of what I didn't say, which means you caught which means you caught the spirit of it.
I find myself, like for instance, we're making your CD available, Open Windows to Heaven. I found myself listening to that over and over again. And then your book, Eternity Invading Time, I believe very few Christians even understand this concept, and if they don't understand how to operate outside of time, they're not going to do the same things Jesus did, and he promised us we would do this. According to my notes here, everything you teach really came from revelation from the Lord.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. Thank God I'm educated with the Word. But I found out that when God started, can I give you a quick testimony on this? Because it hit my spirit so strong. When the Lord really started to move strongly in my life by the spirit of revelation, I would say it was in the very early 80s. because I'd have a lot of angelic encounters. And I must say, and it wasn't something that I'd necessarily seek, but I noticed it was during my times of fasting. It was during my times of fasting, and I'm a great disciplinarian to myself. You know, I do not take phone calls. I don't, you know, my wife will tell you, I'm just not that way at all. I literally cut myself off, and my fasting consists of prayer and worship and really being quiet before Him. You know, because when you're quiet and you're still before Him, you begin to fall off. Dust begins to fall off this earth called you. And you become more refined in His presence, and you're able to comprehend a lot quicker. And I found out that during those times, revelation would just come to me with an ease. And it's not that I was necessarily seeking it, but it would just, you know, the Lord would just drop it in my spirit. And then there are times He would just drop it in my spirit. And then there's times I'll just have angelic visitations. A lot of the prophetic things I shared came from those visitations in the 80s. And a lot of those things are happening now. And so for me, I genuinely say it's a combination of things.
Well, from my viewpoint, almost every paragraph I read or every sentence I hear you teach, it's nuggets of, and you said it actually prophetically to me a few minutes ago, I'm even hearing beyond what you're saying. And that's why I have to keep listening to it. But I believe that when our mishpucha get a hold of this message,
Amen.
That it's the same thing that happened to me is going to happen to them. And I believe that this is an absolutely vital missing element in their comprehension of the difference between the promise of God and the manifestation of that promise. Everyone that's a real believer believes that God has all these promises, and it's true, and it's for everyone, but somehow they haven't been able to have it manifest. This is the missing link. The book is called Eternity Invading Time, and the CD is called Open Windows to Heaven. And I personally believe that everything in the supernatural we can access when we understand these keys, available for a gift of $25. To hear this week's interview in its entirety, or to watch archives of our television show, It's Supernatural, visit our website at www.sidroth.org. That's www.sidroth.org. To receive a complimentary copy of our bi-monthly teaching newsletter, materials catalog, or information about becoming Mishpucha or Chalatzim, write to me, Sid Roth, Post Office Box 1918, Brunswick, Georgia, 31521, or call our order-only line, 1-800-447-2697. To place a credit card order, call anytime, 1-800-447-2697. For all other calls, the number is 912-265-2500. That's 912-265-2500. For a CD of this week's broadcast, send a donation of $10 or more to Sid Roth, that's SIDROTH, Post Office Box 1918, Brunswick, Georgia, 31521.